Happy holidays from the Cinegration Station. Today you're going to hear from conductors Ryan, AJ, and Patrick, as well as a returning guest, Eric Fischer. The guys are going to talk about comfort when it comes to smart homes. So tune in now, here on the Cinegration Station.
Well, jokes aside, so welcome to the Cinegration Station. I'm your conductor, Ryan. We have a few other conductors here today.
Hey, my name's AJ.
Hey, AJ.
Hey.
Hey, AJ. This is Eric.
And Patrick's here as well.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Oh, yeah.
So we were just roundtable talking about, what we're going to talk about today, and it's talking about comfort and feeling comfortable in your own home and how we do that and how we achieve that for our clients. And I'm going to kick it off with Eric and talk about what Eric feels like. What is something that makes people feel comfortable in their home that we, deliver to them?
Yeah, I think comfort, like you said, it could mean various things like temperature.
Yep.
Thermostats, like getting the thermostat to the right level, whether it's heating, cooling.
Yep. Automating that and keeping it simple for our friends and users.
When I think of comfort, I picture a fireplace and, sitting cozy by the fireplace, and nice warm, and socks on.
Are you loading all the logs in the fireplace? Is it automated to that degree, or are we just pressing a button and making it instant?
It's probably a gas fireplace because, that's what everybody has these days. And it's a button press to kick that on and boom, now you're comfortable.
He probably still wears his flannel, though, to feel, more manly about maybe he should load the fire log.
Oh, yeah, like a lumberjack would.
Yeah. I've got to feel manly. That's in comfort in that,
So talking about feeling manly, talking about feeling comfortable. AJ, do you have any input about, feeling comfortable in a house and the related facets that go along with that?
Yeah, we do a lot of comfort style integrations. We do, you can have something as simple as a single thermostat in a house, right? You have that one thermostat in the house. And so that means that's where the temperature is being recorded, and that's the only place that determines whether it's going to be hot or cold. So one of the very first things we always do when we're making a smart home is we decide, how many temperature sensors are viable and how many areas are needed.
And I'll even break it down a little more with temperature sensors and something I think like just to maybe start off is like, I think this is the basis of building a smart home is controlling the thermostats like that. I feel like that's the crux of it. And it's almost like a thing that everybody can do, whether it's the biggest project ever or a one-room apartment.
Yeah, most of our houses, do they just have one thermostat?
No, they do not.
How many do they usually have?
Yeah. So,
up in Breck.
Most homes, I think in Colorado and Denver specifically, have at least two to three thermostats. You typically have a thermostat on your main floor in your basement.
Okay.
And then you have a separate thermostat on the upper floor. You start getting into a lot more thermostats when you start doing radiant floor heating. And that's kind of where you really start getting into the multi-zone systems and how do you get all the temperatures in all those areas and, at proper levels and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. You feel like you want to say something, Patrick?
I'm just listening.
So I think smart thermostats are interesting because you can always go to your phone and just be like, oh, it's hot in here. I want to make it cooler. But there's the other level of it, which is like automating it and making it smart for someone in their house. Like it changes as it should as the seasons go. And it's something they could always monitor and see what the temperature is in the house. So it's just like such an amazing tool to use and such a low barrier to entry to, create that smart home facet in your home.
Yeah. Nest, they actually, that was the first product from Nest was the thermostat. And, if you think about all the smart home products out there, that thermostats kind of resonate with everyone. The ability to change the thermostat remotely.
It's a pretty thermostat. It's probably the most pretty thermostat on the market. I don't know if you want to say pretty, but that's what I think of. It's gorgeous. It looks really nice.
Jewelry of the wall.
It is.
It's
beautiful.
Well, and I think too with Nest, obviously now we've gotten to a point where companies like Excel and these various energy groups throughout the country are offering rebates and whatnot throughout their programs to put Nest thermostats in your home.
Great point.
Because they're more efficient. They can learn your habits, right? You can turn on all these auto sensing features. To AJ's point with sensors, having sensors in other rooms, because if you've got, an area that's maybe far away from that thermostat and that thermostat is your sole point of, temperature reading, well, then maybe that other room is going to be a lot colder, because it's in a different part of the house. So having those temperature sensors to be able to balance that so that hey, it's 60 degrees over here, but it's 70 degrees at the thermostat, being able to kind of mitigate that to where you can kind of keep that comfort throughout the home.
Yeah. Yep.
And then also, getting into the smart aspect of it now, yeah, Nest is a great thing, right? DIY, Ecobee, there's all these manufacturers out there. But now what you're able to do, even like with what you guys do with Control 4, is now you can do conditional logic to get other things in the home to happen. So let's say, it's 65 degrees, it's cold. Well, boom, now we're turning on the fireplace because we're triggering it through an automation system. So that adds a whole nother level of comfort that you don't even have to think about. It's just something that happens.
Yeah, my favorite, or one of my favorite Josh statements at my house is, "Hey Josh, turn on the fireplace." It's just boom, it's on. It's really cool.
So Josh runs over there and puts wood in the fireplace for you?
With the flannel on.
In his flannel.
In his
Forget
flannel.
the flannel, Eric.
Nice.
And Josh is our voice control agent or voice control technology that we use. I guess,
I thought it was your brother who went over there and loaded the fireplace.
He used to, and then we decided to digitize him.
So now that we have the temperature, exactly where we wanted, we've got our fireplace set because it was really cold outside. I think there's another element to this. And one of the things is we talk about, and we've talked about it before, is shade motorization and control of, how much actual heat is coming into the house from the sun outside, which plays a huge factor. And I know that kind of even throws off some of the temperature sensors in rooms. Like maybe there's one of those sensors that might be beaming from the sun outside and all of a sudden everybody's freezing in the house.
Yeah, we actually have a customer up in Winter Park where we were having an issue where the HVAC company had installed the temperature sensor on a particular wall. And in the morning, the sun would hit this sensor. The sensor would then start reading 90, 95, 100 degrees. So it would turn the heat off because it's hot. And in fact, actually, the room itself as a whole was freezing. It was only 62, 63 degrees in the entire room, except for just this one wall happened to be scorching hot because it was always being hit. Had they put proper shades in, they could have taken the solar heat gain that was coming off the windows and offset that. So
it was the architect, he had designed the whole side of the house to be full glass. So it's just that passive solar. And literally, remember we measured it with the gun, and it hit like 120 degrees right there on the edge.
So what you're telling me now is the house has been built, and now there's HVAC issues, but we've got to clean up the mess, or at least figure out a nice solution to figure out how do we make the sensor think that it's not so like hot in here and freeze everybody out in the house.
Yeah, it probably would have gone a lot easier if there was more thought to the smart home. The smart home, many times the smart home technology that we're installing is always an afterthought. It's always put in, we've already got the framing installed. We've already got, the windows are already installed. The drywall's already in. Oh, I would like to mount that shade, or I would like that shade to move and this and that. And if you kind of bring that conversation back to the pre-planning, to the architectural side of it, we would have not put the sensor there. That would have changed a whole lot of the makeup and the context of that system. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, the customer would have been a whole lot happier. They 2-3 years later, they're frustrated because they've been living with this architectural...
They're not comfortable.
Right, because they're not comfortable.
Yeah.
And we're trying to alleviate that comfort with a smart home. But in fact, we could have dialed it in perfectly for them had there been a little bit more thought process on the front end.
Well, and with wide open glass like that and doing shades, shade technology, it's gotten to the point where it's smart as well, right? Where, certain shade manufacturers, Lutron being one of them, you're able to do things with programming where you can have these shades drop at certain times of day, right? And raise at certain times of day to let certain amount of lights in. And not only the comfortability aspect of this application of where the heat is hitting the sensor, but what about the fact that the sun is blaring through these windows in the morning? You're awake, you know what I mean? It's too bright, you want it a little bit darker, but you have no way to control that because you have no shade automation or anything like that.
You'd have to run up to the little remote on the wall and hope you pressed it early enough for the shade to go down, so you did it last night, but make it smart.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think it just, comfortability, we're talking about thermostats, we're talking about fireplaces and shades. I think that we need to look at this even on a broader scale of, look at the lighting. Right? You guys have been talking to lighting designers now, and Ryan and Eric kind of have, I think, understand now why a lighting designer is so important. And it's crazy to think, Ryan showed me a house earlier in Florida, $5-6 million house, and no thought to the lighting at all. That's comfortability as well. Walking into a room, sitting at a dining room table, and there's a can light above every single chair. Nobody wants to sit in a spotlight. Indirect lighting, thoughtful lighting to accent the architecture, to make you more comfortable in that space, to make you feel better in that space that you're living in. I mean, it's important, especially for these homes that are multi-million-dollar homes, and we're throwing in Home Depot fixtures, and there's no thought behind it. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, there's definitely not. There's a level of comfort that you need as it relates to how you visualize the room and feel in the room. Also how like your body responds to the actual temperature in the room too.
What I'm hearing is that you really need to get a smart home integrator.
Totally.
It's at the beginning. We actually have a house down south. I think you actually, when you worked here, helped us with it. And one of my favorite quotes that the customer said is the husband and the wife, they liked the bedroom to be very cold when they slept. But they hated when they woke up, they had paid for radiant floor heating. And so they loved that feeling of when they got out of their bed, they put their feet on the ground and the floor was warm. So the actual conversation was, I want the room cold, but I want the floor hot.
Yeah, I know exactly which client you're talking about.
And it was
makes a lot of sense.
It was a challenge to do it, and we could do it with a smart home system. And it took a number of things. It took shading. We had to get the Lutron shades just right in that house because there was a lot of glass in that home. It took 2 separate systems of heating and cooling, and it took an integrator to put it all together and wrap it up in a nice little package.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about that, I was going to talk about big ass fans, that is. And
they actually have a higher end. So their primary line is big ass fans.
Let's just specify. So it's a brand name called Big Ass Fans, and they also make another fan company. It's a residential line called our Haiku line. But we just wanted to throw that name in as a plug just for fun, right?
Yeah, and Big Ass Fans and Haiku, they do make really nice architectural fans. They look great on the walls. The reason why the smart home industry has kind of fallen into them is because we can control them. Mm-hmm. They've developed the gateway and the wireless technology so that we can tie them into a Lutron system or to a Control4 or a Crestron or whatever system it is, and then make them work.
Mm-hmm. I know fans just generally get tricky when it comes to integration, or does it have a separate remote, or is there a 2-wire for the light and the fan combo? So it can get really confusing, and I know they do a really good job of making it easy for the integrator at the same time making a really quality product.
So how does that technology work? Is it why do we have to use special products like the Bond, which I'm mentioning another product, but to integrate with fans, fireplaces,
RF controlled devices,
shades,
like
and so on. So
RF. The underlying architecture of most fans and wireless fireplaces is RF, radio frequency. And you could kind of, in the technical terms, I would call it a UDP style communication, which is a lot like a phone call. When you're talking to somebody on the phone, they are not replying back every time you say a word saying, "Yep, I got it."
Yep, I got it.
Exactly. That would get really annoying. And so what RF does is it's just broadcasting out. And then we a lot of times, I think Patrick and I used to say send and pray.
Send and pray. That's great.
And then listen.
Hope it works. I think I did it right. We'll see if it was right.
So, and that's how most fireplaces are, and most fans are. Actually, almost every single Home Depot fan on the market is all RF controlled. And there is a product. It's called Bond, BOND. It's a tiny little RF repeater, and it has tons and tons of RF codes. I think it's thousands of different kinds of fans, and it can do fireplaces.
Do they have different models like 007? 006 or
no, they
just Bond.
Well, they have Bond and they have Bond Pro.
The more you pay, the more it controls.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Understood.
So I don't understand why are these technologies RF? Like, why don't they do IP? Is it cost effective?
I think it's because when the stuff was originally created, those engineers were maybe 30 years old when they created it. Now those engineers are 65. 70 and they just don't want to upgrade.
Well,
why break what's working?
and I mean, let's be honest, right?
Doesn't work.
RF technology is a very simplistic technology. It's a low frequency range. There's not a lot of things currently in the industry. I mean, obviously you can have interference, but RF is a lot less prone to interference than IP. Right?
Sure, but it's like when you want to use it, you can use it, but trying to automate and control and tie it into systems
it lacks that two-way feedback.
Sure.
So literally, like you said, send and pray, send the command. I don't know if it got there. I don't have a response saying, yes,
But
I
on
got
the
your
IP
command.
side, what if the internet's down? I can still send RF commands, right?
You could.
That is very, very
separate.
true.
So hence why, again, plug in Lutron all the time because love it. And obviously
Lutron's not RF, but
all the old stuff is RF.
all
Clear
the old
Connect
stuff.
Type A is RF. They do now have a couple new products that are Clear Connect Type X, right? Which is a wireless communication 2.4, just like a lot of these things, Sonos, Nest, all these guys. And again, every company can do a lot of R&D on these products to make sure they're as reliable as humanly possible. But with the internet goes out, which we all know, the infrastructure in this country in general is not great.
It's got to work local.
It's got to work. And
Local.
if you've got all RF technology within the home, let's use Lutron as the example, your lights, everything is still going to communicate properly. You can still push a button on your little handheld Pico remote to raise and lower your shades because it's all communicating via RF. And
That's
I would
true.
say it's very solid. It's very reliable. It's what people know. And again, IP is great. Yes, there's feedback. There's all these benefits to IP. There's also a lot of downfalls to it. And as we continue to bring products into the market that are internet-based and IP-based, there's more interference. There's more problems. It's more prone to problems. You also have different manufacturers buying different, chipsets, right? Oh, well, maybe my card that's in this product is not as good as the one that's in this product, and it doesn't communicate as well. And
So Patrick, just to tie in, just so I can explain it to somebody, I can explain it to my nephew.
Yep.
So when we're talking about IP, so like if a Nest thermostat was in a project, it has to go up, report back to the internet, come back. But if I used a Lutron thermostat or something like that, as long as it's all locally controlled, I don't really run into that same problem. So I guess that's the other layer of this is the other IoT and smart devices are great from case-by-case uses, but you run into issues if you don't have internet or these other things. You could create really just robust systems. So I think that's the next layer of smart homes is that like that professional element and making sure there's redundancies and control.
Yeah, and that's where you bring in a company like Cinegration, right?
Good plug. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they understand these things, they know these things, and they know where these pitfalls are going to be. Are you going to prevent it all the time? Absolutely not, because every house is different, every system is different. So there's always going to be pitfalls and challenges, and as technology develops and evolves, you're going to continue to see that. But I would much rather have a system that's going to work if the internet goes out, right? Or whatever, we get hit with an EMP and, I guess then power's out. So
I mean, it's really
matter,
valid. My internet goes out all the time. And if, if I couldn't control the thermostat or my lights, it'd be kind of a pain. So I get it. And I think a lot of people relate to, I got to reset my modem and do that. And, obviously we do a good job of our networking for our clientele, but for the mass group of people, there's real internet problems sometimes.
Well, just one more thing really quick here, AJ, is, another example of that, Rachio, right? Sprinkler control. Wonderful idea to have internet-based control via an app. Everything's going that direction. We had a client when I was here that I went out to 25 plus times because the internet kept having issues and she couldn't control her sprinklers. 95-degree day. She's in another state, in another house, and all of her plants are going to, not get watered. And she's freaking out as to what are we going to do? And there's no way to override that when this is down. I mean, I can't go over there and start turning zones on manually with my hands. It's just not going to be a thing.
Yeah, there's also, so speaking of irrigation control, I actually used to have a product called Skydrop. And it was great. I mean, it knew when the weather was coming, it would change, how much water it would water, and it was all fine. And then that company went belly up. I think it was like 18, somewhere around there. And they just turned off the servers. And
just broke everybody's houses pretty much as it relates to their smart irrigation. I feel like that gives people maybe almost like a sour thought of smart homes, when things just break and you're like, I gotta get a new one. So it's tricky.
Yeah. So a good integrator should bring up the concept of local versus cloud, because you can still have IP control. I can still control things. The big thing I look for in a product selection when I'm looking at a smart home is can I control the unit without internet? And it could be IP. It could still
Local.
be
Yep.
local
Local
IP.
connection.
But that's kind of the big thing is I don't want to have to rely on the internet connection. And in reality, when I say the internet connection, I mean that in 2 to 3 years, when that business model decides to change, if they decide to shut down the server, then you're screwed. And so we definitely spend a lot of our times here making sure that our products are locally controllable. Lutron is one of them.
And that makes you comfortable.
Truth.
And that does make you comfortable.
As we talk, we are slowly running out of time, but I think as a final note, we could all give a mention of what we feel like is our personal favorite element of making people feel comfortable in their home. And I just kind of threw this question to you guys now, but maybe take a thought and mention to anybody listening what might be like a really nice thing to just think about when you're building a new house as it relates to just feeling comfortable. If anybody wants to kick it off.
Yeah,
Thanks, AJ.
You're welcome. So my belief with comfort is I want to be able to control all the things that change the climate in my home and from the phone. And it's important that I can do that. Not because I actually want to go to my phone every single time, but then I'm kind of future-proofed. In the future, if my lifestyle changes, if I were to get in a car wreck and I were to become paraplegic or something like that, I wouldn't physically be able to go over to the wall and adjust my thermostat. So having a smart home system that is locally controllable is incredibly important to me and my family.
Okay, so theme being locally controlled, holistic control solution when it relates to HVAC and comfort settings. Okay. Anybody
Lighting.
else?
Mine's all about lighting.
Lighting.
It's always
Yeah.
lighting.
Lighting is,
I would have probably
Preach,
said
preach,
voice or TV or some of the exciting stuff, but honestly, as I've continued in this industry and I've had interaction with lighting designers, Glenn Adaptive out of Park City, I really, we all walk into places and notice speakers and all these types of things, but for me, lighting has become just this thing that it really sets the mood, it sets the tone. I'm not a big fan of having bright lights all the time. I was notorious when I worked here that I would work in the dark and clients would always be like, "You want to turn some lights on?" I'm like, No, I'm good.
that explains
I'm
a
good.
lot.
Explains a lot,
personality.
right? That's why wires got hooked up wrong, all those things. But yeah, I think having the ability to control lighting, whether it's from a phone app, I mean, that's, having that control aspect is important to me. Being able to set the mood and have those changes, being able to go upstairs and turn all the lights off downstairs via an app or a voice command via Josh. And then also scheduling with lights, right? Outdoor lights. Being able not even to think about turning my lights on and off outside. They just come on, they go off, they do what they need to do. It's just great. So lighting to me is probably the most important aspect for comfort in my current status of life.
Perfect.
Yeah, on mine, I've been experiencing the shading aspect, the automated shades, and I really like how they kind of run on a schedule. At 10 o'clock, my shades, are automatically close up, and I know, hey, it's 10 o'clock, time for bed. Just one less thing I have to do before going to bed. I think it's around 5 o'clock or based off sunrise or sunset, excuse me. I have a privacy setting, so I have the top down, bottom up in the master bedroom. And so it's nice because it drops down and it gives you privacy. So, shower time or getting ready for bed, you still have the part of the window open so you can see out natural light, see the view, but yet you still have privacy for doing that. So that's been a game changer for me and living with that for the past year. So.
Perfect. So for not having to do much work, your house is secure from privacy and also from sun coming in and going to bed and just your full life cycle. So, or your day to day. Well, I think that's everything. And we'll catch you all next time on the Cinegration Station. Again, this is your conductor, Ryan, and your other conductors here.
So it's AJ,
Eric,
And Patrick.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk to you next time. Talk tech.
Oh, yeah.
You've been listening to the Cinegration Station with Ryan, Patrick, and AJ, and special guest Eric. You can find the Cinegration Station on every major platform, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, and Anchor. Please like and subscribe. Anyone interested in smart home technology, check out cinegration.com. Leave a comment or a question. Until next week, stay smart.